Abraham worshipped on it, Solomon, Zerubbabel, and Herod built on it, Jesus taught on it. Nebuchadnezzar and Titus destroyed what stood on it. I'm speaking of Mount Moriah, one mountain, thousands of years of biblical history, and archaeology proves it. Stay tuned to learn more.
Welcome to Faith Affirming Findings, a podcast dedicated to sharing with you
the incredible discoveries from the field of biblical archaeology.
These findings will strengthen your faith, affirm the historicity of Scripture, and provide you with unique insights into the culture and background of the Bible.
Now, here is your host, Associate Professor of Bible Exposition at Dallas Theological Seminary,
Dr. Paul Weaver.
In Genesis chapter 22, God commanded Abraham to offer his son Isaac on a mountain that he would show him. That mountain was indeed Mount Moriah. It would become a place of supreme faith, divine intervention, and sacred history. Genesis chapter 22 verse 2 records the words of God when he said, "Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you." Abraham obeyed, and God provided a ram in Isaac's place. Fast forward several centuries, and this very mountain is mentioned again in 2 Chronicles chapter 3 verse 1. And we read, "Now Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to his father David." King David had purchased this site, a threshing floor owned once by a Jebusite, see 2 Samuel 24. And his son, David's son, Solomon, constructed the first temple there. But tragically, Israel turned away from God. The prophet Micah declared in Micah chapter 3 verse 12, "Zion shall be plowed like a field. Jerusalem shall become heaps of ruins." And indeed, that's what happened. In 586 BC, the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar fulfilled that prophecy. Jerusalem was destroyed, the temple demolished. Yet, in an astonishing turn of events, also predicted in prophetic scripture, God used a pagan king, Cyrus of Persia, to allow the temple in Jerusalem to be rebuilt. See Isaiah 44:28. This temple is often referred to as Zerubbabel's temple. Generations later, King Herod the Great expanded and embellished Zerubbabel's temple on a massive scale. The Jewish historian Josephus called Herod's work, and I quote, "the most prodigious work ever heard of by man." Herod's temple stood at the time of Jesus' life in the 1st century AD. In fact, John 2:20 records that the temple expansion by Herod had taken 46 years. But Jesus foretold its destruction in Matthew 24 verse 2 when he said, "Not one stone shall be left here upon another." And in AD 70, that prophecy was fulfilled when the Roman general Titus destroyed Herod's temple. You can see the video on the Arch of Titus, which discusses that in greater detail. Many of the massive stones of the temple still lie where they fell. Let's look at just a few of the faith-affirming discoveries that support the biblical events described in the scripture. First, the temple warning inscription. This inscription was discovered in 1871. It warned Gentiles not to enter the inner temple courts under penalty of death. It reads, "Let no Gentile enter within the barrier. Whoever is caught shall be responsible for his impending death." This warning and this wall is probably referenced in Ephesians 2:14, where Paul speaks of Christ, who has broken down the wall of separation. The second temple-related discovery that I would like to tell you about is what we call the Place of Trumpeting Inscription. This Hebrew inscription, found in 1968 by Benjamin Matzar, identified where priests would blow the trumpet to mark the beginning and end of the Sabbath. Experts believe this stone fell from the southwest corner of the temple wall in AD 70. It remained buried there under a mound of rubble for over 1,500 years. Let me tell you about a third remarkable discovery, the findings of the Temple Mount Sifting project. After illegal digging took place in 1999, hundreds of truckloads of earth were dumped into the Kidron Valley. In 2004, Gabriel Barkay began sifting through this dirt, and the finds were staggering. 15% of the pottery fragments date to the First Temple period, the time of Solomon. Seals from the 11th to 9th centuries BC were found, as well as Babylonian arrowheads, just as Scripture describes in 2 Kings 25. Additionally, floor tiles in a special style used by Herod the Great were also uncovered, linking the sifted material to Herod's temple complex. Solomon's temple, Zerubbabel's temple, Herod's temple, all were built on the same sacred mountain, and all were foretold, constructed, and destroyed. And archaeology has found traces of them all. In summary, the temple warning inscription, the Place of Trumpeting Stone, the Temple Mount Sifting Project, the destruction debris, and the fulfilled prophecies regarding the destruction of Solomon's and Herod's temples by the prophets and by Jesus all confirm the historicity and reliability of Scripture. And that is your faith-affirming finding of the week. If you found this episode encouraging, and I hope you did, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more episodes just like this one. And don't forget to get a copy of my upcoming book, Faith Affirming Findings, set to release in January of 2026. See you next time.
Faith Affirming Findings podcast is a listener-supported podcast devoted to affirming your faith in the reliability of Scripture and illuminating your understanding of Scripture.
If you would like to help sponsor the Faith Affirming Finding podcast,
You can make a tax-deductible donation of any amount, large or small,
at faithaffirmingfindings.com. That's faithaffirmingfindings.com, and click on the Give tab.
We hope you'll join us again next week for another exciting Faith Affirming Finding.